If you're looking to make a big move into gold or just want to try to get a sense for what's coming, there's some pretty clear positive factors to look to. Just to keep things interesting though, one of those factors might be too positive. So here's a new one. Traders seem to be pricing in the potential for an oversized rate cut this month. Oversized meaning more than 25 basis points. And that tells us a few things. One is that we'll continue to see volatility leading up to the announcement coming up on the 18th. And another is that it's possible that after all this lead up to this rate cut, we could actually see gold price fall on the actual event. Now I'm going to have to explain that one. The reason here is that traders have already priced in these tailwinds that aren't here yet. So traders are 100% sure we'll see a rate cut this month, and gold is trading with that in mind. Now earlier this week when we saw job openings came in the lowest they've been in 3.5 years, the dollar fell, gold jumped. So as traders start thinking, hey, maybe we'll see a 50-point rate cut rather than a 25, and the price of gold moves up. We saw it happen again today when new jobs data backed up what we saw earlier, and now the CME FedWatch tool is telling us that more traders actually expect the 50-point cut. So on the 18th of this month, we get an announcement from the Fed on where rates are going. And if we just use the two most likely cases, we're going to see a cut of either 25 or 50 basis points. Now, if we see 25 on anticipation of 50, we could actually see a pullback in gold price. And that's what I'm getting at here. We could actually see this big event, a rate cut, actually happen, but the price of gold fall back. And normally I'd say this is all good news and expected behavior, and you might too if you aren't focused on one point in time, but I know from all the comments and notes that a lot of people are considering what I would call a bet. And if that's you, you have to consider that all this talk of a rate cut bringing a price jump might have actually gotten a little bit ahead of itself, and it could get to that day and feel more like a rug pull. Now keep in mind here that big firms like Goldman Sachs are saying gold has a lot of potential right now for an influx of Western capital. They have a $2,700 price target for the year, actually right at the beginning of 2025. But the interesting part here is that we're already seeing the price run. We've been seeing it all year on anticipation of the cut. So treasury yields going down, US dollar softening. We've seen those outcomes priced in before we've actually seen the outcomes. Now, these aren't wild what ifs. We're actually seeing this happening today where gold is pushing higher in anticipation of a larger cut. So now we're looking at a possibility of pricing too much in too soon. Either that or we do get a 50-point cut and all these analysts calling for $2,700 gold might get some early validation. Now, I get it. We're looking at 50%. One thing happens, 50% another thing happens. And what does it matter? Well, another part of this is that the price of gold is straddling a significant line. I'm not going to get into technical analysis too far here, but $2,500 is important. If gold stays above that line, anyone who's bullish on it stays that way. If it drops below it, you start to hear from the bears. Now, like I said, this is either an interesting sideshow to you or it's a really big deal. The reason that I'm getting into this is the number of comments asking if now is the right time to buy gold. Now, this is far and away the biggest questions coming up right now. Lots of people asking, and there's an answer. It just isn't a simple one. I'm not going to tell you whether now is the right time to buy for you. I'm guessing anyone asking that question would be concerned about the short-term price factor in a way that I'm just not. Is the price going to go up from $2,500 or wherever it's at today or go down from that mark? Well, I think it will continue to do both for at least the next 2 weeks. But none of us know what the Fed will decide prior to that event. The better way to look at this is whether it makes sense to buy gold. Just take now out of the question because that implies you're thinking about it as a trade. Now means you want quick gains or you're looking to move a huge amount into gold in one shot. Now, if I was just making a simple guess, I think that we're going to see continued gains on gold. I can say that with little to no stress because each new purchase that I make is going to be less than 1% of my overall holdings. That's because I average my cost over years and years. Now, I said that was a simple guess, but it's based on the best information we have. Now, story time, so we have an example to work from here. When I bought this Mustang, American Liberty, in August of 2021, the spot price of gold was $1,815. Gold was bouncing around in the upper 1700s, low 1800s all year long. And that was down from the August 2020 high that was above $2,000. So I thought 2021 was a good year to buy, and it was also backed up by easy data telling me gold was down 10%. So I sped up my buying. Now, this specific coin was a splurge with a 50% premium, but we also knew it was a low mintage coin, and we could more or less guess that it was going to do well on the secondary market. Just looked really nice. So in that case, I had enough information and enough feeling, I guess, to pay a lot more for the coin. I paid $2,715 for it at the time. So those were choices based on the information we had at the time. They seemed pretty easy. And spot price, well, it's up 40% since I bought that Mustang 3 years ago. And the secondary market for that particular coin is way higher than that. It's more like 100%. So we have validation. Now, it might be a little bit harder today, or at least a little bit more complicated, because the macro story tells us gold is going up. And that's my personal feeling too. The only hesitation that we might have is what I mentioned earlier. We know that at least some of that story is already priced in, and it's hard to say how much. Now, if you're trying to answer that question of whether right now is the right time to buy, well, it's impossible to say what the Fed will do 2 weeks from now, so it's impossible to guess how traders will react. And the pricing backdrop tells us gold is on a run up 24% versus down 10%. So the answer to the question of whether right now is the right time to buy gold is that nobody knows if you're thinking about the price of gold inside a future 30-day window. The story for gold climbing is a good one. It's the one that I think is the most feasible, but the setup for it based on the current price run, that's 50-50. I'm not trying to answer anybody's question. Nobody should. I'm just trying to give you some context so you can answer it yourself. Now, I don't trade gold, so I won't even bat at that, but as for whether I'd go all in right now, shift, say, $100,000 into gold at today's prices, well, I would have rather done that in 2021, of course, but that aside, I would have to have $100,000 that I don't need right now, because the only way I'm buying a bunch of gold right now is if I want to lock away some wealth in a way that won't depreciate over a long time frame. And no other situation is going to be relevant to me. So if you're looking to do something like that, and you want examples of how gold performs, well, history gives us lots of years to look at. This is longtermtrends.com, and we could see how gold has performed over the past 53 years since coming off the gold standard. We could see how gold price punched up in 2011 and fell in 2013. And we can see the average gains over the past decade have been right around 7.5%. So you can look at the charts, you can see how it's performed in the past, you can see examples of ups and downs, how there probably were some trades in there, but look, they would have been really tough to call. Most importantly here, we can see that the downs in price have always reversed. Long story short, gold has done very well over time. So to anyone saying that I didn't answer the question, well, I can't answer it for anybody else. For me, though, I told you that I average my cost I buy over time. I told you I think gold is continuing to rise, and I told you I wouldn't use cash that I didn't want to lock away for years. The stories and the information we have right now support that bull story for gold. I told you about my buying spree in 2021 and that Mustang in particular. Well, I have validation today, but spot price fell to the 1600s between then and now. And if I was a nervous type, I could have sold at the wrong time. Anyone can. So gold always makes sense to me. Same as it has for the past 16 years, but going all in at any one time or treating gold as a trade has just never been my strategy, and I don't see any reason to change that now. Let's call it good there. Last week, I told you about a flash sale at summitmetals.com. Well, they're open for business. They have great prices all around at the moment. What you'll find there are the most popular gold and silver options, and you're going to see that they're offering them at great prices. So I'll let you know about flash sales on Discord and community posts and videos when it makes sense. They actually have one coming up this weekend if you're looking for silver. I'll let you know. Back to the original topic. If you have a take on gold price, whether right now is the right time to be buying, let us know in the comments. And while you're there, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you'd like to hear more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.